Hi everyone, welcome to this short video that takes you through practical one of my introduction to spatial data and using R as a GIS course. So you might have come across this from my website or from one of my training courses. So this will give you a bit of an overview of using R as a GIS. First of all, check out the website for more details. There's a link below. Hopefully when you're going through the material, you should have the workbook in front of you. So this could either be the PDF version, which should be on your screen now, or the HTML web page version, which is on your screen. Either works, the content's the same, so you can use whichever you prefer. For this, I'm going to use the PDF one, and I will share my RStudio screen with you now. So this is what RStudio looks like. So as a quick reminder, we have R, the program that does all the work, that runs the code we type in, and then RStudio, which is an interface for this, or sometimes called an IDE, Integrated Development Environment. We have three kind of key bits to our RStudio. So the console, this main bit on the left here, where we type in stuff, the environment on the top right, where our variables are listed, and then our files or plots window on the bottom right. So we can use RStudio as a calculator, as a very basic start. So if we type in 6 plus 8 and press enter, it'll give us a result, 14. And, we can do all sorts of other stuff like that. So 5 times 4, 12 minus 14, and so on. And there's lots of, calculations we can do with that. But we can also use the concept of variables. So here, we're going to create a variable called price and assign it the value of 300. So if we press enter on that, we can see on our top right in the environment, we've got a variable called price, and it says it's 300. And we can say to our, okay, so we want to use the price variable. If we just type it in and press enter, it'll tell us what it is. But we can do stuff with it. So let's say we do take off a 20% discount of price. So we're doing price multiplied by 0.2, so 20%, and then price minus price. So 20% of 300 is 60, and 300 minus 60 is 240. And we can use multiple variables together. So we can set our discount to price times 0.2. So we've created something called discount, which is 60. And then we can do price minus discount. You see it's come up. So that's a suggested. So this is the autocomplete. So if we want to fill that in, we can just press enter, and then it will do the calculation for us. We can also add in extra data. So there's a bunch of different ways of doing this. The first one is to use this C function. So I'm just copying this from the PDF, copy and paste. So we've got house.prices, which is our variable name. The dot isn't structural, it doesn't mean anything, it's just a way of separating words. And then we have assign to, so the less than and the hyphen, and then we have C. So C is a function for a list of numbers. And then we have our list of numbers. So we've got 7 numbers here. And so these are house prices in thousands of pounds, but they could be anything. And we press enter, it creates this variable called house.prices. And it will tell us what is in the variable. And you see the preview, it doesn't show the whole thing because there's not space for it. And we can then do things with this. So we can use the mean function. So you can say, okay, what's the mean house price? And it will give us a value. So so far, we've just been storing these variables. These are just kind of individual numbers or lists of numbers. We also have something like called a data frame in R, which is a bit like a spreadsheet in R. So we can read in CSV files from our computer, which we'll do in a bit, but we can also read them in from online. So I'm going to use this example. So this is coming in from my website. And what that does is it goes up onto the website, finds the CSV file and reads it in. And you can see it's come up here, data, hp.data, 118 observations and 3 variables. And we can use the head function to have a look at it. So this shows us the first 6 rows. There's actually 118 rows or observations in this, but it just shows us the first 6. And head is a very useful way of just getting an idea of what's in the data. We can also use the view function. So this is an RStudio specific thing. And if we run that, it will open up a new tab. And so this, we can scroll through it and we can reorder stuff. So we could click on the price column and it will order it by price, order it by burglary rate or ID. Once we're done, we can close this. And we can also use the summary function. So this will give us the minimum first quartile, the median, mean, third quartile, and the maximum for each of our 3 columns. For the price, this is quite useful. Burglary rate, this is kind of semi-useful. ID, this is completely useless because the ID doesn't mean anything. It's just a number. So you can calculate the mean of it, but it means nothing. We can also use square brackets to identify certain bits of data, and we can add and remove columns. So if we have a look, if we just type in hp.data, it will show us the whole list. So this is quite a big list, so it's not massively helpful, but we can look at it. But we can also add columns. So let's say we wanted to create a council tax column. And at the moment, we can just say, okay, it's NA. So that will create us a column, but with blank data. So why doesn't it like this? Okay, let's have a look. The head hp.data and see what we've got here. Okay, so it has created the column there. I'm not sure what the error message is, possibly something odd about my installation of RStudio. Never mind. And we can also use the same process to delete a column. So if we want to get rid of the council tax column, we can also use the up arrow on the keyboard to show us previous commands, and then we can just go back and edit that. So if we change that to null, null is missing data. So it means we'll get rid of it. If we run that, give us some sort of error message, but if we look at the head again, we can see it's deleted that column. And we can also rename a column. So we have this function called col names, which tells us the names of the columns. So if we just run it like that, it will say we've got 3 columns, but we can also then select out a specific column. So if we do square brackets 3, that will say, okay, what's the name of the 3rd column? And we can also update that. So we could change this, we could assign it a new value, say price thousands. It's something odd about this data that it doesn't like, but it should still work. If we do head, yeah, we can see it's renamed the columns. So there's something a bit odd going on about that. What I will do is I will restart RStudio, because this is a good technique to sometimes deal with this sort of thing. So I will be back shortly. Okay, I'm back now. I've restarted RStudio and I've run the columns for HP data again, and it's worked now. So there was some odd thing going on. Occasionally this happens with RStudio. IT 101, turn it off, turn it on again. Often solves these sorts of problems. Cool. Okay, so now we can start working with some geographic data in R. So we need a number of libraries to work with this. So it's the SF and the TMAP library. So hopefully you've already installed them by doing install.packages, but we also need to load them. So if you type in library SF, it should go off and load the SF library. And we have to do that every time we start a new session in RStudio. This tells us, okay, we want to work with this data. And we need to do the same thing with TMAP. So TMAP is quite a sizable library, so it takes a few seconds to work. And here we go. So we've got our less than symbol, sorry, greater than symbol back up. So it means it's ready to go. So we need to work with some GIS data. So, and to do that, we need to set a working folder. So where are we actually going to store all of this? So it's best practice to make sure you have a working folder. So this is my Windows Explorer. So this is home. So I'm going to save stuff in documents. And then I've got this folder called GIS. And we're going to create a new folder and call this Intro R Prac 1. You will have a folder that works within your existing system. So make sure you've got a folder where you want to store this stuff. So we're going to use this folder. I will swap back to RStudio now. And we need to tell RStudio where this folder is. So if we go into session, set working directory, choose directory, and then we can say, okay, this is the folder we're using. So documents, GIS, intro R, practical 1. You can do all this in code as well. So you can see that's the code we'd have needed to write, set WD, set working directory, and then the path. So C:/users nick documents, GIS, intro R, practical 1. I find it easier to use the graphics because then you don't have to remember the exact names, but either works. We're going to work with a set of spatial data, some things called shapefiles, for an area called St. Helens. So this is near Liverpool. Again, you can type it all out or you can just copy and paste it. So this is going to download the data from my website. Yeah, and it's downloaded there. It is in our working folder now. We can have a look. So if you go to the Files tab, and then we are in GIS, Intro R, and St. Helens.zip. That's the one it's just downloaded. And we can also do unzip. St. Helens. Autocomplete works with this as well. Press tab and it fills it in. And so it's unzipped. So we've got 4 files there. Check out the presentation or the other information on shapefiles and all their structures if you're interested. We need to read this into R, so we can use the stRead function, and we've got to store it as a variable. So we're going to call it St. Helens. It's assigned stRead, and then it wants to know where is the file. Oops, delete those. And it's called St. Helens.shp because it's a shapefile. This will only look in the working directory, so make sure the working directory is where these files are. You can check it at the top here. You see it says R430, and then that's our working directory, working folder. So the tilde, the wavy line, is your home folder, and then we're in GIS, intro R, practical 1. So let's hit enter. And it's coming with this black text, and it says it's reading it in. It's a simple feature collection, which is what SF stands for. 118 features, so 118 rows and 5 fields, 5 columns. It's a polygon, which is what we want. And we've got some information about the bounding box and the coordinate reference system. And it's come up as a variable here as well, which is great. We can have a look at the data. So we can look at the spatial element using the QTM function. Quick tmap, and this will give us a quick map. Yeah, there we go. We've got some areas there. And we can use the head function as well. And this will show us the attribute table. So it shows us the kind of header information, what it is, what we're going to do with it, and then the various columns of data. So we've got our name, our label, and our zone code. And this attribute table works in exactly the same way as an attribute table in QGIS or ArcGIS Pro. Shapefiles are ubiquitous for GIS data. So if you want to have a look at them in one of the other bits of software, have a look, see what they look like. We are now going to join these 2 data sets together. So the HP data and the St. Helens. And we can use this called the merge function. So when we do a join, we're doing an attribute join, and it's the ID column that we're using. So in our spatial data, we've got this ID column. And if we have a look at the HP data, so the burglary and the price data, we've got this same ID column. So that's what we're going to use to join the data. And to do that, we type in the data, what we're creating. So we're updating our existing variable, St. Helens, and we're going to use the merge tool. So this is St. Helens, it's the first data set, and HP.data is the second data set. We're going to run this like this. We don't need to specify what the columns are. QGIS is clever enough to figure it out because we've got two columns with the same name in both data sets, so it'll try joining those. And it says it doesn't like it. So object name, oh, I can't spell. So very common in R. I press the up button to show the previous command, and we've got sunt e Helens, which is not going to work. So let's delete that E. That looks a bit better. We give that a go. No error message, that's a good sign. We can have a look at the head to see if it's joined correctly. And yeah, I think it has. So we've got the name, label, and zone code, which is the bit from the spatial data, and burglary, price thousands, which is the burglary and price data. And now we've joined it, we can create a choropleth map. So we're going to just use QTM. So we're saying QTM, what data, so St. Helens, and then what column do we want to fill the data with? So we're going to use the burglary column. And there we have a map of our burglary rates. So, some areas with much higher rates, some areas with much lower rates. This is a good start for a map. If we want to export this, we can use the export tools and then copy to clipboard and paste it wherever you want, or save as image. So you can save it as an image or a PDF. Cool. So that's the end of practical 1, and I'll see you in the next video for practical 2.